Adolf Hitler. He was supposed to be the supreme leader of a superior race, a model of physical and mental health destined to lead Germany into a glorious future. But behind the propagandistic marble of the Führer stood a fragile body, kept upright by needles, tonics, and placebos. Every morning began with a jab. Every decision passed through the chemical filter of a doctor who turned him into a chronic patient. What started as a routine of vitamins became a regimen of hard drugs that followed the Third Reich all the way down. This is the story of the Führer on drugs, of the most hated doctor in the Chancellery, and of how addiction became politics.
Mientras la propaganda nazi sostiene el mito de un dictador invencible, el médico personal de Hitler, el Dr. Morell, le inyecta diariamente soluciones de azúcar, vitaminas y hormonas extraídas de semen de toro.
Era lo que lo mantenía activo. Así que él no era el superhumano que todos creían.
It all began in the mid-1930s when Adolf Hitler crossed paths with Dr. Theodor Morell. The Führer, then at the peak of his power, suffered from cramps, gas, insomnia, and a relentless hypochondria that no doctor in the Reich had managed to ease. Morell, a burly Berliner, sweaty, talkative, and overconfident, promised what everyone else had failed to deliver. "I will keep you always fit and strong." His recipe was simple, and it sounded convincing. Daily injections of glucose, vitamins, and natural extracts. Hitler accepted without hesitation, and from that day on, the scene became ritual.
When he met Morell in 1936, who quickly became his personal physician, and Morell said, "I can give you vitamin injections and you immediately will feel amazing and you will never get a cold," Hitler thought, "This is my man." He woke up and he rolled back the sleeve of his pajama, and Morell came in and gave him a vitamin injection and a glucose injection, and Hitler had had his breakfast.
Every morning, Morell arrived at the bedroom with his leather case. Hitler would offer his arm almost solemnly. The needle went in, and the day could begin. The generals saw it as another eccentricity, but for the Nazi leader it was something else. A declaration of power. Not to fall ill, not to be absent, not to show weakness to anyone. The early results seemed astonishing. Hitler said he felt renewed, energized, proof in his mind of Morell's medical genius. That is why he granted him unrestricted access to his private life, something no other civilian had ever been allowed. But inside the Chancellery, the Führer's new personal doctor inspired near-universal contempt. Göring called him the Fat Doctor. Goebbels despised him for his vulgarity. Bormann warned that his closeness was dangerous. Hitler, as so often in his life, chose to trust only his instinct.
¿Pero qué está haciendo exactamente el Dr. Morell para que Hitler esté saludable? En sus notas confidenciales una frase se repite una y otra vez. Inyección, como siempre.
La única razón para recibir inyecciones de glucosa era tener un suministro adicional de energía.
Este tónico de Morell, que era el Dr. Dealer, estaba diseñado para realzar la autoestima y reducir las dudas y temores.
What began as a daily jolt soon expanded into something much bigger. Experimental tonics were added to the vitamins. Morell, running his own pharmaceutical operation, mass-produced substances and administered them with the confidence of a man who believed he could push the Führer beyond human limits. Hitler, pleased with the effect, kept him close. Every trip, every conference, every gala dinner included a built-in pause for injections. If Morell did not arrive on time, Hitler grew impatient. His mood darkened and his temper turned violent. That mediocre doctor, despised by almost everyone, had found the most dangerous key to the Third Reich, the leader's dependency. The myth of the Iron Man, the perfect body and service of the state, was starting to rest on murky vials and pharmaceutical glass. And still, no one outside the inner circle could know what was happening behind closed doors.
El Führer mantiene las dosis de glucosa y las inyecciones de hormonas como un secreto muy bien guardado. Mientras tanto, Morell detalla en sus documentos personales cada inyección que le pone a Hitler. Sus anotaciones codificadas registran, cuando la Segunda Guerra Mundial comienza a tornarse en contra de los nazis, cómo Adolf Hitler en secreto se vuelve adicto a una variedad de narcóticos.
The nickname was discreet, almost clinical, Patient A. That is how Hitler appeared in Theodor Morell's private records. Notes scribbled in uneven handwriting, alongside numbered vials stacked in his lab inside the chancellery. Each mixture carried a code name. Each dose came with obsessive calculations. What had begun as a vitamin routine turned, within a few years, into daily dependence, something the doctor disguised as prophylactic treatment. As the war expanded, so did the Führer's chemical catalog. In August 1941, during the offensive against the Soviet Union, Hitler fell seriously ill, high fever, vomiting, and persistent diarrhea that left him bedridden for days. The generals feared the worst. Morell, confronted with his own failure, reached for a new experimental compound, hormones and animal-based steroids. The effect was immediate.
Stage 2 started in the fall of 1941 when the war against Russia turned bad, and he started to take lots of hormones and steroids and barbiturates. He had high fever and diarrhea, so he was quite sick. They called it the Russian flu. For the first time, he got hormone injections from animals, pig liver extracts, and it actually worked.
Hitler was on his feet the next day, euphoric, boasting that a medical miracle had saved him. From then on, the line between medicine and dependence disappeared. Morell recorded every symptom, adjusted doses, and invented chemical explanations to justify the leader's exhaustion. The war was becoming, little by little, a laboratory on a continental scale. Those closest to power began to notice the changes. Hitler could swing from euphoria to dejection in a matter of hours. There were days of manic fury, followed by stretches of absolute silence. His voice, once firm, took on a brittle edge. His speeches, longer and more erratic, seemed driven by unnatural energy. Morell, bragging about his results, began giving him up to 5 injections a day, mixing stimulants with painkillers. The contradiction was grotesque. While the regime preached racial purity and condemned moral decay, its leader was being kept alive by a laboratory-made pharmaceutical cocktail.
La energía que tenía ese hombre se la pasaba escupiendo con rabia contra los aliados, Occidente, Gran Bretaña, los judíos, contra los enemigos de Alemania. Y al parecer era imposible mantener semejante energía durante tanto tiempo solo al utilizar algunos de los recursos naturales que tenía.
Hitler se volvió dependiente de su dosis diaria en inyecciones.
At the same time, the German army was hooked on its own fuel, Pervitin, a methamphetamine distributed in millions of tablets to soldiers, pilots, and secretaries. Reports spoke of men who marched for 3 days without sleep, driven by a feeling of chemical invulnerability. Blitzkrieg, in part, was a pharmacological phenomenon.
Pervitin fue uno de los mayores éxitos farmacéuticos en Alemania porque casi todos en la sociedad alemana le tenían un uso. El Pervitin estimula la capacidad de hacer cosas o de hacerlas mejor y más rápido. Y durante la época nazi, esto era crucial para la vida.
In the barracks, the pills were called soldier chocolates. In the chancellery, they were spoken of as the Führer's strength. Hitler saw them as another tool of control. His army had to be as tireless as he believed himself to be, and Morell, always attuned to the master's wishes, justified every substance as an act of patriotic service.
En términos de ciencia, los nazis querían volver cualquier cosa un arma.
Esto no era del todo una contradicción a la ideología nazi. Les gustaban los estimulantes que los hacían productivos, eficientes, trabajadores y soldados.
En 1938, los nazis le encargan a un médico del ejército llamado Otto Ranke que averigüe qué efecto podía tener el pervitin en los soldados alemanes.
The results were anything but encouraging. Many who took it suffered paranoia and ended up shooting at comrades or taking their own lives. That pushed the regime toward a shift. In 1943, a new law banned the development of non-essential medicines during the war, but Morell, backed by the Führer's direct signature, turned his practice into a space beyond the law. There, he prepared and administered injections without oversight, while the rest of the medical staff watched with fear or resignation. At night, assistants collected the empty vials and sent them back to his laboratory to evaluate reactions. Everything had to be documented. Every jab, every spasm, every mood swing of patient A. The generals, increasingly unsettled, began referring to him as the sick man who commands. In meetings, Hitler would slam the table, erupt, interrupt, and then collapse into heavy silence. Some thought they saw a spark of madness in his eyes. Others saw something simpler, the exhaustion of a man who had driven himself past the body's limits.
Theodor Morell was the Führer's trusted personal doctor for 9 years. Hitler heaped praise and honors upon him, but other Nazi doctors despised him, dismissed him as a quack, and blamed him for the dictator's dramatic deterioration.
July 1943 marked a point of no return. The war was no longer the glorious expansion the Führer had promised. Stalingrad was an open wound. Allied bombing raids were leveling German cities. Morale was collapsing. Hitler, spent, trembling, prematurely aged, spent long hours shut away in his office, drowning in anxiety and stomach pain that Morell could no longer calm. That was when the doctor tried something new. A painkiller produced by Merck called Eukodal, a semi-synthetic opioid even stronger than morphine. The first injection came on a rainy midday, shortly before a meeting with Mussolini. Hitler was depressed, crushed by news of the imminent collapse of the fascist regime in Italy. Morell filled the syringe and murmured, "This time you will feel real relief." Within minutes, Hitler's face changed. His breathing deepened, color returned to his skin, and a hard, overbearing energy replaced the dejection. Soon after, he demanded a second dose. What followed became one of the most talked about scenes among those who witnessed it. Hitler boarded the plane to Feltre, where he needed to convince Mussolini to remain in the Axis. During the meeting, he spoke non-stop for 3 hours, gesturing, dominating the room, forcing his voice through sheer intensity. Mussolini could barely get a word in. "Today's success is entirely yours," Hitler told Morell afterward. From that moment on, Eukodal became his new fuel.
And after a good shot of Eukodal, you feel extremely good. And this is exactly what happened to Hitler. And there's reports from that meeting with Mussolini where he just didn't stop talking and was in such a euphoric mood that he easily convinced Mussolini to stay on board.
The effect was immediate, a rush of mental clarity, euphoria, and a sense of limitless power. But after every peak came a dark crash, exhaustion that only another dose could soften. Morell knew it, and he used that cycle to tighten his control. He prepared personalized mixes combining Eukodal with vitamins and small amounts of Pervitin to sharpen lucidity. The result was a cocktail as effective as it was destructive. The change in Hitler's behavior became impossible to ignore. Strategic meetings turned chaotic. He jumped from exaltation to rage. He improvised impossible plans. He dismissed intelligence reports. He ordered suicidal offensives with the delusional conviction that willpower alone could win the war. When officers tried to argue, he humiliated them or accused them of betrayal. In those hours, Eukodal spoke louder than the Führer.
He used the drugs to keep his convictions that he formed when he wasn't already on drugs. He just left reality at a point when he should have realized that his delusional ideas of beating the whole world was what they were, namely delusional and totally irrational and not in touch with reality at all.
The man who preached discipline and racial purity had become a functional addict, governing through spasms of euphoria and chemically forced focus. And so, without fully realizing it, the Third Reich entered its most irrational phase, directed by a leader who answered to the timing of his next dose. And as if that were not enough, one more stage still awaited Hitler's addiction. On July 20th, 1944, the bomb planted by Klaus von Stauffenberg detonated at the headquarters, known as the Wolf's Lair. Hitler survived, but he was badly injured. Ruptured eardrums, wounds, and a tremor he could not control. Morell heavily sedated him with a brutal mix of painkillers and got him ready to appear intact before Mussolini that very night. The performance had to continue. That was when a new figure entered the story. Dr. Erwin Giesing. Examining the Führer, he concluded that Morell was administering pure cocaine, both to relieve headaches and to sharpen him before meetings. Hitler loved the effect. Cocaine mixed with Eukodal produced a combination later known as a speedball. Euphoria, followed by an artificially induced calm. From then on, his routine became relentless. Mornings of methamphetamine, afternoons of opiates, nights of cocaine. His face grew gaunt, the tremors became constant, and his mood swung between fury and confusion. Morell, increasingly hated inside the inner circle, sent motorcyclists racing through a Berlin in ruins to secure the last reserves. The Reich was collapsing, and with it, his supply. Some officers breathed easier when the Führer, sick and unstable, could not attend meetings. And the Allies came to a perverse conclusion. A chemically dependent Hitler was more useful alive than dead. His deterioration was accelerating Germany's defeat.
When the American interrogators of Morell found out all the different 28 treatments he was giving, like the ground bull testis and the semen and the prostate glands and so on, some of them wondered whether he was a double agent, whether he had purposefully, in a way, made Hitler so much dysfunctional that he couldn't win, he couldn't achieve what he wanted.
In 1945, after the bombing that destroyed the Merck plant, the flow of Eukodal stopped. Hitler went into withdrawal. Tremors, sweating, mental confusion. Doctors recorded a condition close to collapse. In the Berlin bunker, hunched and barely coherent, he struggled to hold even a simple conversation. When he finally dismissed Morell, he did it screaming, "You've been drugging me the whole time, out of my sight." But it was already too late. The myth of the Führer had dissolved in a syringe. The story of the cocaine Führer is the story of a country that turned chemistry into a weapon of war, and its leader into a chronic patient. Theodor Morell was both supply and symptom. He embodied the distance between the myth of purity and the reality of a body failing behind the facade. When the doses ran out, control vanished with them. That is how the Reich ended, not with triumphant roars, but with tremors, needles, and silence. That brings us to the end. If you enjoyed this video, we'll be waiting for you in our next release to keep uncovering military history.